On today's episode of Sweet Hometowns podcast, I am joined by two really great and fun women, Mariah and Shelley. So stay with us for their interviews. So today I'm joined by Mariah Montgomery, who is one of our employees with Main Street, Alabama, and we're also joined by Shelley Paasch, who I have known for a few years because we do share the same love of
color.
Fun hair color. So anyway, our podcast today, we're going to talk a little bit about your love of Main Street. It is February, so I feel like we should go in a lovey kind of direction and not in a yucky love stuff kind of direction. So let's start with you, Shelley. For our first question, what is the first memory that comes to mind when you think of Main Street?
Oh my gosh, so funny. So back in 2006 or 7, I had two different individuals that came up to me at the business that I was working at the time. And the funniest thing, separate, 2 different times a day, 2 different weeks, came in and said, "Oh my gosh, you would be fantastic to work for Main Street." And I said, what is that? I don't even know what that is. And they were like, "Well, I'll give you a little bit of information on it." And I said, "Okay." And then a week later, I had another person that actually came in and said, "You know, you would be fantastic to actually work at the Main Street program." I'm like, "Okay, I have no idea what you're talking about." So looked into it a little bit more, talked to the person that was in charge of doing some of the hiring, and they sent me the application, and the funny thing is that I actually received the application via mail, and I'm looking at it, I'm reading it, and I'm so excited about it, and
Wait,
I
you mean
cried.
snail mail?
Yes, snail mail,
Right.
total
Okay.
snail mail, because it was a package, just this thick package, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding. So I cried. I just cried looking at it going, there is absolutely no way one person can actually take this on in a local community. Then I ended up learning a little bit more, talked to a few bit more of the board, and just kind of figured out. And they asked me in for an interview, and asked them directly, like, please tell me there are others to help. And they certainly said that there's a fantastic board that'll be behind you. There are 4 points, these committees that people will work with you. With the committees and design, promotion, economic vitality, and organization.
Let's make sure you know them all.
Yes, and so then I cried a little bit more because it was just such a huge passion about everything that you could just do to impact this community itself and work with people together and collaborate. So it was pretty fantastic. That's my first memory of Main Street.
That's awesome. So, Mariah, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm pretty sure yours isn't going to include the phrase snail mail.
Snail
so
mail.
What you got for me?
No, although now I'm trying to think of how I could associate that. No, actually, one of the most prominent memories for me for Main Street actually came from a very devastating time. So I was just a few months in my Main Street director journey, and we had an incredibly devastating fire in the heart of our downtown.
I actually remember that fire.
Yes, it was an early fall morning, and it was a Sunday morning, and we received the call that there was a fire happening downtown, and it genuinely was right next to the monument, so it was like in the heart of our downtown. We unfortunately lost 2 buildings that housed 3 businesses and 1 residential loft all at once. And at the time, I say that I think of that, but the reason I think of that is because that same day, everyone was together trying to comfort the people that were losing their businesses and their properties. And we're watching, one building is completely engulfed in fire. The next one is obviously catching flames. And we're all looking at each other and we're thinking, oh no, it's not going to stop. And the fire department was amazing and wonderful, but it wasn't slowing down. And all of the people that were down there, all of us in our jammies, got together and started going into the Pea River Historical Society and pulling everything out because it was two doors down from the one that was actively on fire. and everyone just formed an assembly line. And I'm telling you, the people that were losing their properties and their livelihood at the same time were in there helping. Everyone was together and just, lifting everything out, because it was our historic society,
Right.
our museum, it was the entire history of our area. I have this fantastic photo of my husband carrying out the Boll Weevil Monument, the original Boll Weevil Monument,
Aw.
from there out onto the street. We were putting him across the street, and I think the only reason I was able to feel lighthearted enough to take that picture is because of that feeling of camaraderie that we had in the community. And I'm sure that any community would likely respond in that way. But the Main Street part of it is the days after, when everything just feels so low. The fact that those business owners and property owners had a program to lean on to help them fundraise, but also to just help them with general direction and to be that uplifting voice. An entire board of volunteers that was ready to kind of take them in and try to make sure that everything was okay. And luckily, it really did change how that ended up impacting our district. So obviously, the fire came in and took the actual heart of our district out, and left a genuine hole for, I would love to say months, but it was years. It was there. And the businesses that were impacted directly, physically, were not the only ones impacted. There were plenty that were impacted economically. And so having the Main Street program there to really focus on those businesses and try to be that voice of reason and the ears that were listening when they were saying, but the sidewalks are closed and nobody's coming in, and there's a hole in our downtown. What are we going to do about the hole? And to help push along filling in that hole.
Yep.
And now today, I fully believe that the downtown district is more resilient because they had a Main Street program in place. I think that if they were just lesser prepared, and they didn't have active volunteers just really rooting for downtown, it could have taken a lot longer to bounce back.
You said that it took the heart of your district. I don't think it took the heart. I think it created a hole. I think it
Yes.
helped make your heart stronger. I don't think it took your heart.
That's a good point. It physically might have taken where our heart might visibly be.
There you
go. But the heart was all of the people that came together to make it
so
better.
compassionate, that
Yes.
everybody, and you said resilient. That's massive part of it. That's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Stinks for the fire. Fantastic for the other
Right,
side. Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and you were brand new. So that on top of everything else.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember Mary saying, she's brand new. What is she
It
going to
didn't
do?
scare me off entirely, but it really did
We were
create
worried.
bonds.
We were worried.
Yeah,
We were
it
concerned.
created good bonds.
All right, well, let's talk about something that Main Street people may not understand. What is something about Main Street that people just don't understand?
So many things. However, it's a lot of the quiet behind the scenes work that happens that people don't see, the full-time volunteers that are full-time job workers as well, right? So they're trying to juggle everything. They're trying to keep everything above board, making sure that it's not just fundraisers, it's not just events, it's not just the retreats that are happening. It's the quiet resilience that happens behind the scenes that people don't necessarily
Resilience.
see. Just like you were saying, and being. I'm sure you're feeling the first weekend, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? And it's just really fantastic that, people pull together like that. And they don't, these early morning meetings, the late nights getting out there in your pajamas because there's a fire. We dealt with that as well, that there was a fire in our downtown when I was the local director. And you're just like, oh my gosh. And I don't know if I should say, but he's now my husband because he was my husband, but we have a really good relationship, but he is fantastic. And we actually, he was there doing all of these things, not part of the fire department, but part of public service and being able to do these, and you're just relying on those people to be able to, whether it's your city, whether it's your county, whether it's in your Main Street community, and just making sure all that's happening, because it comes down to it's the heart of what everybody is doing and making sure that it's going to continue to thrive. And even though as a local director you're eating, breathing, just sleeping, everything of this, but your volunteers are, it's an us process and it's an us progress to be able to have those things happen. So,
and I'm stealing husband, by the way. Just in
You're
case.
welcome.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
love it.
Love it. So what about you?
So My answer to this has changed a little bit over the years. So when I was a director, the thing that I was screaming from the rooftops was, we do more than events. We do more than events. That's less than a quarter of what we do.
Yes.
And now on the state side, my screaming from the top of my lungs is, you're going to have to put in the work at your local district in order to see results. As much as the fabulous Superwoman Mary's, there's got to be a better name for that. I'll come up with something. Super Mary, as much as she would love to come Mary Main Street, as much as she would want to come in and wave her magic wand and fix everything for you, that's not realistic.
Right.
And people are always asking me, well, what do you know about these investors? I hear about all these investors. You have to look locally and you have to power yourself locally. We will give you all of the tools and all of the suggestions and all of the pros and cons and all of that. Main Street, Alabama is so excited to be a resource for you, but you have to look around the room and figure out who's actually going to show up at 8 a.m. for that design meeting.
Exactly.
And who's going to be planting the flowers and who's going to be, raising the money. And then once you have that strong local power, then you go and you try to find money, but it's still going to be found 90% of the time locally because nobody cares about your downtown and your home as much as you do.
Yeah, and these business owners are taking personal risks every day. Every day to be open.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that is now in this role, I'm always telling people, especially with our network communities that are slow to build, don't get discouraged, but you got to call your neighbors. I know that you're excited, but is everybody else excited? Let's get everyone excited,
I like that. I like that. And I like the fact that it's changed a little bit over the past year.
It has.
So I do like that a lot. So I guess a question for you then is, when you were a local director, or even now that you work for us, what was a time when you made the decision or you just felt that, that angel moment of, this is why I do this work?
Okay.
You can't use the fire again.
I have a great story, actually.
Okay.
So I was a local director. Luckily, it didn't take me till working with the state to have that moment.
Okay, good.
Right? So as a local director, Main Street, Alabama paid for a real estate redevelopment visit. It was completed by Joe Borgstrom. Shout out to Joe Borgstrom of Place in Maine. They paid for him to come into the district and go into these properties that had been vacant for a long time. And I'll be honest, they weren't looking like they were going to have anything in them soon. The property owners, not all of them were very motivated. But the whole point of the visit was for him to come in to see these buildings. We got public input as well on what they would like to see. But then we toured these buildings and we got to go in and see the behind the scenes, which, by the way, economic vitality does not get enough love. That's where you get the tea, right? Economic vitality, right?
Yep, you get all the things.
I'm telling you right now, you know who's buying what, who's opening what, because they trust you to do that.
Absolutely.
And trust you to keep their secrets. So just throwing that out there. If you're, not an economic vitality person, maybe you should be. But anyway, so we got to go in and we got to meet with these property owners and kind of have that conversation of what is it that you want to see. And I'll be honest, they weren't highly motivated. We had one that we never got to go inside. They ended up changing their mind at the last second. But of the three that we were able to go in and see, Joe developed performance for each of them. And again, this was free for me as a local director in Main Street Enterprise. So that was phenomenal. And now it's still something that we do from time to time for communities. And the first business that went into one of those buildings, I took pictures and sent them to Joe so fast. And I was like, guess what? And he was excited too because...
Look what happened.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, they were not... I didn't expect it. We were all so shocked when the first business went in and it was a paint studio into this gorgeous building downtown that had mostly been used for nonprofit meetings and it just was kind of not ready yet. and the owner invested and allowed a business in there. And I am proud to say that today, all 3 of those once vacant buildings now have thriving businesses in them.
That's awesome.
And like, I'm getting the tingles just talking about it,
Yeah.
because that changed the lives of the property owners, that changed the lives of those business owners, those entrepreneurs, because 2 of those are brand new businesses, and one of them is a huge business that came into a huge bank building that we were all like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Like, it's built for a bank, and they found a way. And you know what? Those properties got invested into, and all it really, I mean, I can't say that it was all because of that visit, but it got us closer. And through that visit, we also got the real estate redevelopment plan itself, and that put power into the economic vitality team's hands.
Yes.
Because it wasn't just about those 3 properties. We used that to recruit other businesses in, and that just changed like how impactful they felt. But it also, again, like I said, we're not just doing events. I'm screaming it, I'm like, Main Street is economic development.
Yes.
It is. And that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, the skies have opened.
Awesome.
It was just so amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and just a little bit about the, about the real estate redevelopment plans and stuff. Main Street, Alabama is proud to be able to pay for those for our communities when they need them. It does help us a lot to help, like you said, have your aha moment of what your district can be like. So,
Absolutely.
absolutely. All right, Shelley.
Same type of thing, man. I
question.
tell you, I was sitting there going, I have a, like, I
No
gotta
interrupting, it's
stop.
tacky.
Exactly.
All right,
I
go
totally
ahead.
didn't. I tried hard not to. But the same type of thing. We had something very similar in Kansas, and it was really fantastic. I don't think one of the buildings, which would have been super cool, but as you go in, like you said, and you're touring these buildings, you're like, oh, and you're stepping over pigeons and that are no longer living, and it's not good, but you're going in, and it is fantastic to see the vision that can actually be there, right? The things that you're excited about. We had an old bank building as well. And we ended up having somebody go in there and using it for an event space. So it was super cool to see that just turn over into another, and getting money on the sales tax rolls, and everything is fantastic, right? With that, we had another building that, oh man, we just, and Mary's going to hear this and she's going to go, oh yes, I remember this building. It was, everybody, you try to sit around and talk about it, and the top floor, there was a leak from the top floor to the second floor. But there was a kiddie pool that was actually
Like a real kiddie pool?
Yeah.
Okay. I
yeah,
thought maybe
like
it was a created kiddie
Yeah,
pool.
no, like a child's pool,
Okay, gotcha.
right? Not a kiddie, like a cat. Meow. But they would have these kiddie pools that was actually catching the water, and then they would have a hose that was taking the water and draining it out the back. Totally saw it. It totally stunk. But
It's redneck ingenuity.
it
right
really
there. I
was,
like
right?
it.
It was just mortifying. And these were prominent people in the community. And it was just like, well, we don't want to fix it up because we don't have anybody to rent it. And I'm like, you're not going to rent it unless you clean it up. It was like this vicious circle. And you
Right.
would just sit there and try and everybody thought there's no way on this earth that anything's going to happen with that. And we had our EV team talking to them, and we had members of the board that were talking, and it's building that trust and being able to have that community vibrancy with each other and be able to talk. And they said, you know what? They sold the building for like $1 to whomever, and these people bought it, and they had just seeing the exquisite taste that they ended up putting in the floors and sanding the floors and putting in the beautiful just everything on the walls, the paint that was there. Mm-hmm. And they, oh my gosh, it was just fantastic going and seeing these before and afters, which we ended up using later in some branding to be able to, put this off and go, okay, this is the fantastic stuff that we're talking about, and being able to get people talking about it, because then they see something happening, especially like if you're doing something with your building, then I'm actually turning around and going, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should look at what I'm doing.
Competition is always
Oh
a
my
good
gosh,
thing.
it was amazing. We would have 5 facade projects that were going on in the district, but then there was somebody that you knew they were never ever going to do anything with their building. But the guy got out one day and he starts painting his building and talking to the neighbor, and she said, well, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I need to actually start working on my building. He had no idea, but it was just a fantastic domino effect that actually happens. And it was wonderful to see. And having that, the trust and the resiliency, like we've said before, and being able to have the community believe in itself and being able to, in turn, just have community pride back in, because you tend to miss that quite a bit.
And I will say, I did not realize when I was in school how into history I would become. So I wish I'd paid a little bit more attention.
Exactly, me too, right?
Because now that I'm into all of these historic buildings, it's
like,
just
look
very
at the transom on that.
Yes,
exactly.
Well, it's never too late to go back to school. But you're a little busy right now. So
I'm a little busy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you might want to wait till you're retired.
Yes.
So, well, I would like to thank you both very much. And just as a fun fact, we're here talking about Main Street, Alabama, and all the awesome things that Main Street, Alabama does. However, I'm a Colorado girl bookended by two Kansas girls.
I'm actually not from Kansas originally, so.
Yeah, but you're there now.
You've been there a long time.
I have been there a long time.
So. And you don't sound
claim
Southern.
you.
So
That is true. That is true.
Not a one of us on this Sweet Hometowns podcast sounds
There you
Southern.
go.
So there you go. All right, again, thank you both for joining me. It has been a great time. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
If you have questions that you would like to pose to us on maybe future episodes of the Sweet Hometowns podcast, just send those to info@mainstreetalabama.org.
You can learn more about Main Street, Alabama and the Sweet Hometowns Initiative at sweethometowns.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates and episode highlights.
The Sweet Hometowns podcast is a production of Main Street, Alabama in partnership with Video Visions Media Marketing.